Okay, hi everyone. Good afternoon from Singapore. I'm really pleased to host this webinar today. So this is the second webinar of a series of digital health events that we are organizing at APACMed with the support of McKinsey. So today we are going to learn from 4 experts about how to get closer to patients if we are in the medical device industry. So here with me, we have Stefan Langevin from Baxter, Vivian Wang from Zeiss, Adrian Lowe from McKinsey, and Jyotish Nair from McKinsey as well. So if we can go to the next slide, just before we start, I just want to remind you, if you have any questions for our panelists, you can use the chat and we will answer them at the end of the webinar. Next. So this is an initiative of the APACMed Digital Health Committee. We are now a broad, quite large community, nearly 200 members, individual members from more than 60 companies. We work on a bunch of topics related to digital health, from cybersecurity to medical device interoperability, reimbursement, regulatory, and so on. So if you want to know, if you are curious about our initiatives in digital health, feel free to reach out. And that being said, I will hand over to Joe for his introduction. Thank you, Joe.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you from wherever you are dialing in. And thank you for this opportunity. And today, I wanted to cover why patient engagement is important for medical companies rapidly, and allow my colleagues and fellow panelists to have a discussion around this topic. So it's an interesting image. If you look at the left side, on left, the nostalgic sentiment of getting treated as a patient for a couple of centuries, if you will, it's a painting. This painting seems to suggest a few things, if you carefully observe. Physical and emotional connection between physician and patient seem to exist or suggest. There's this notion of personal care, which cuts out anxiety in patients' minds, if you will, if there is any. In the background, there is an immediate preparation of medication that is personal to that specific patient and care for that patient, which is quite an interesting image by in itself. The conclusion is a simple patient journey with just a couple of other stakeholders involved, such as a physician or a pharmacist in that specific instance. The patient-related disease and data issues is completely at the mercy of a single physician. So if anything happens to the physician, it doesn't exist at all. If you switch a few decades later or centuries later, in modern time, in contemporary times at the moment, on the right side, the sentiments seem to be reacting to something with a sense of immediacy. And there's this sense of proactively, physician have the ability to reach the patients for a quick scheduled check-ins if need be, or this notion of convenience around your fingertips for an instant care available anytime, anywhere, in whatever instance. Again, which is quite an interesting comparison if you think about it. Conclusion again here is that patient journey does not start and stop in one place. Patients are able to engage with physicians and vice versa 24/7. However, the challenges are a few and many. A couple of examples to call out: lack of perceived empathy. If you look at the right side, there's this sense of perceived empathy, lack of it, or lack of this personal care that that patients are seemingly wanting or yearning to have. Lack of holistic understanding of patient situations and the complexities surrounding around them, and specifically around the data and transfers of the data and so on and so forth. Having said this, the future looks rather bright for medical tech and medical products companies and health startups to harness some of these issues that are rising as we speak. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. If you think about the patient journey from pre-diagnosis through to within the clinic and hospital through the discharge and being at home situation for patients, there are a number of opportunities a MedTech could help enhance experiences for good. These are not exhaustive lists. These are a few sort of themes that's meandering at the moment. One, needless to say, telemedicine, telehealth. There are several number of ways to engage patients today over the past 12 months. The telemedicine adoption due to COVID has shot up, as you all probably can imagine, from 50 to 175 times, which is a striking figure, striking business case opportunity there is. Cut down on waiting times within the hospital clinics or patients, so care delivery can happen at any point of time where the patients are, rather than patients making all the way to see the doctor, like the image on the left-hand side that we talked. In hospital care, right? Really helping patients get through the care pathway frictionless means improving the whole triage process whilst inside the hospital, improving cross-department waiting time, and improving repetition of communication between the stakeholders, various stakeholders involved within the hospital setup or a clinic, or external multiple hospital setup and clinic. Ultimately, it comes down to patients, where their journey is starting and where they're coming from, and how seamlessly their data is moving from one point to another because of the complexity of the system in today. And then there is this third way of engaging is alternative access points, providing care for patients in the places where they would like to get the care. This could be alternative kiosks, this specifically relates to patients who are very time poor when it comes to proactive care, providing care through temporary satellite clinics and whatnot. And then the fourth is the home delivery, providing self-service to patients through home delivery, providing instant health check results, connecting to the data and local primary care and secondary care. And this also alludes to a form of patient education, which again, safely providing patient education to patients, and also the value adds to the B2B and B2B2C services. And then finally, last but not least, at home patient monitoring, helping patients self-monitor and intervening minimum to give non-invasive care, connecting some of these monitoring health devices to carers and better inform for their patient condition on a daily basis. There are these are non-exhaustive to say. It will only grow as the medical players and medical product companies are seeking and moving more in this direction. By having such a varied patient engagement model, it will help generate better patient insights. Those are the key things. Help accelerate care process, will help the patient and healthcare education and training materials, so that can become a way to improve the care aspect from a healthcare professional perspective. And finally, the most important thing as a patient is removing anxieties out of their mind and increasing adoption of a solution. So I think that's the key behind where, being ubiquitous towards the patient care pathway. Next slide, please, if you could. So one of the recipes that we've come up with in order to sort of tackle this with a number of situations, client situations and care situations, we suggest these are tried and tested models and would love to share. This is called LEAP. It is an approach to fast track new business models to market through a rigorous customer-centric way. So there are 5 B's here. One is breakout through qualitative and quantitative primary research, generating new business concepts that align to the market challenges that we are facing. So effectively trying to understand what are some of the pain points, what are some of the stress levels through the patient pathway journey, as well as as a medical products company, how does that come together? And so in the breakout, we suggest to do a whole bunch of diagnostics and come up with 2 or 3 or 4 solutions that would show a directional business model. And in the blueprint, rapidly proving the business model, whether it makes sense or not. At the same time, rapidly prototyping and iterating some of the solutions along with the patients where it's appropriate, and with healthcare professionals co-creating. Now, build is iteratively building the product in parallel, setting up the full business operations from ground up and enhancing any kind of existing operations. Boost, primarily scaling the business into multiple regions, exponentially growing the user base or adoption rates, and so on and so forth. Finally, branching out is branching the business to new areas within the organization or outside. I'm sure this was a whistle-stop tour in like 10 minutes I've given. There might be some questions, I'm aware. So feel free to put your questions in the chat and we can start to answer them if need be. The conclusion here is each of these stages are meticulously planned and measured to ensure business can be tangible, can have tangible benefits. At the same time, ultimately, the patient care is at the center of everything that we do. Without any kind of ado, I will transfer this to Adrian. Adrian, do add a few points if you have any thoughts.
So maybe, hi everyone, this is Adrian from McKinsey, and I'm an associate partner based out of our Greater China office working on MedTech and especially digital innovation. So what Joe introduced here is actually a playbook that we've worked with, and it's for us to really scale new businesses for incumbents, and specifically this topic of patient engagement is very often seen as a new business and has different operating logic for MedTech companies. So we've seen this been in action, right, for quite a few of these patient activation, patient engagement type of initiatives within MedTech, where you actually have to think of it almost as a separate standalone business and think about what's the business concept, what's the strategy, what's the product we're trying to sell or bring, or what's the solution we're trying to bring to our patients, and actually then build it out. And very often it involves building a digital product as well, which is quite new to many companies that are more in the physical business, right? So then a playbook like this is really helpful to help think about and really step by step, how do we actually go through the process? So, and happy to take more questions and discussion, I think, at the end of this. But if we segue to the next part, I think what I wanted to do here is to introduce our fireside chat, which is the next topic here. Maybe if we can go to the cover page, I think we can just briefly introduce it. The objective today is really to have a brief discussion as well with some members in the industry that have actually done this. And so here we actually have with us Stefan Langvin, who's a senior commercial director at Baxter in AP, and also leading the digital health, representative work in digital health in the region, and as well as Vivian, who's from Zeiss and managing a myopia progression management solution, which is a new business that it sits between two business groups in vision care and MedTech. And so today, I think part of the discussion we want to have in the remainder of the session really is to have a dialogue about what has really worked in the industry, or what are lessons learned from practitioners who are really leading these businesses on the front line in Asia. And maybe I think to start, I would love to sort of get your thoughts and as in your introduction, a little bit about sort of what's the solution that you're leading, and also maybe how is this shaping sort of patient engagement, patient activation. And so maybe I'll introduce Vivian. Maybe Vivian, you can start first. You're on mute, Vivian.
Yeah, I think I have to unmute. Hello, everyone, and thanks, Edwin, for your invitation. It's my honor to participate in this seminar and sharing my experience and have discussion with you. I'm Vivian from Zeiss China, and I'm the project leader of Zeiss Myopia Progression Management. Perhaps you have known that myopia has become an epidemic in the world, and China is one of the areas who suffered a lot. And we own the largest population of myopia around the world. It seriously affects the health and the development of children and adults. At the same time, it also affects the training and selection of highly skilled talent in the country. The effective of prevention and control measures myopia would lessen the prevalence and the development of myopia, and also they can eventually reduce the formation of blindness. Before I joined Zeiss, I worked for Philips and a couple of pharma CRO, so most of my experience was in healthcare IT. So based on this experience, that's why I joined Zeiss to leading this myopia progression management project. Okay, so why we set up the MPM project in China? Because firstly, myopia situation is the most serious in China, and based on this new business model, and we expect to shape the myopia market and beyond, shape the myopia market in China and beyond China. So could you pass to the next slide? So the Zeiss MPM project is based on this serious situation, and we aim to build up an evidence-based holistic patient care business model that could improve everyday life of children and families living with or without myopia. Since myopia is a chronic disease that needs families participant every day, so that's why we established a digital platform, which is the 2C platform that including our mini app on WeChat and the public account and the management console. They create early awareness and enable user to find the best possible treatment opinions and options, provides professional information at the fingertip, and then refer them to the business partner close by, which is our Center of Excellence. So in the past 1 year, we developed some content and digital products on our digital platform that including some educational content and acquisition tools, and also including the social CRM system and some self-acuity examination, myopia prediction algorithm on the digital platform. And based on this users acquisition and grow up, we can also make a business intelligence analysis based on this digital user pools. So when the user came to a offline site, which is our Center of Excellence, that including the hospital and optometry clinic, which are medical institutions, and the optical store, which is non-medical institutions. The patients can get the standard of care from myopia screening, diagnosis, intervention, and follow-up. So once the patient get the standard of care in the Center of Excellence and they came back home, they can be continuously monitored and followed by, and also get reminder from our digital platform, and they can revisit to a Center of Excellence offline. So holistically, this is an ecosystem provide a solution to a patient, so they offline and online, so continuously the data can be tracked. So can you go to the next slide? So based on the standard of care, and we are also developing the expert consensus with local KOLs and the government. So we expect to provide a more clear guidance to the industry, and this practice can also be copied in the offline Center of Excellence. And how can we engage the different users online and make them be customized? So we categorize the online users based on the detailed situation and stages into different category. So as you can see that for the myopia keys, for the keys who doesn't have myopia, but they are our digital platform user, so we can have some dedicated practice and products that use for them. And for the myopia who is in the early stage myopia, but young kids who is our digital platform user, we also have dedicated tactic for them. Along the myopia decision track, we should define the myopia stages and the injection points for the user engagement. What we need is deeply understanding of the user behavior and also mind change. For example, for the kids who doesn't have myopia, but on our digital platform, we should improve the awareness of myopia prevention, not only to the kids, but also to the parents, to focus on myopia prevention and also deliver the knowledges on the importance of, for example, outdoor activities for the young kids, but already has a little bit myopia, and we should trigger the user to take fast action to focus on myopia control and management, to deliver the knowledge on the harm of high myopia, and help them to engage into the myopia progression management and to stop them, to stop the kids go to the high myopia stage. That can further empower them to engage in the decision making. And we also develop a couple of digital tools that parents can examine kids' acuity status and also to create the refractive profile in the mini app that can help users to participate in their myopia progression management. Based on the interactive algorithm, the myopic kids can also predict the myopia situation in their year of 18th. So when they understand how will be happen when they are 18 years old, they can be better actively engage in the myopia progression management. So that's some little practice and digital products we developed and we are practicing from China.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Vivian. Thanks for the great introduction, right, to the solution. We'll come back to this and we'll have a discussion, but maybe let me pass it to Stefan and share a bit about what you're doing in dialysis space with Baxter.
Thank you, Adrian. Well, first off, thank you for APACMed for inviting Baxter to share our experience in improving the customer centricity by launching a digital health program in the renal space. Of course, we could go to the next slide. To understand what we do, you have to understand a little more about what is peritoneal dialysis. I'm responsible for marketing peritoneal dialysis across the region, as well as digital health. I do know our awareness of what is peritoneal dialysis may not be well known, and that's something we need to work on. But I guess what is peritoneal dialysis? Essentially, it's a home treatment where the patient is in charge of his dialysis by introducing dialysis solution through a catheter every day. And then the peritoneal membrane blood vessel will filter the blood, and then that solution is then extracted from the abdomen and drained. It could be done through gravity, and then Baxter developed a cycler that helped automate that process. And essentially, when you look at this process, there were some challenges that we had to overcome. And I guess from an healthcare provider, caregiver, and patients, when we look at their patient journey and how they go through their treatment, well, the efficacy and the benefit of peritoneal dialysis at home is really well established. There is some feeling or some insight that we gather when we start to look at what they were doing. And I think one of the things from a patient perspective is, hey, I'm worried if I will make a mistake and I'm not so sure if I can operate the machine well. And they feel alone and not necessarily connected to a healthcare provider. And from the nephrologist, it was more say, hey, I wonder how Mrs. Lim is doing and her husband as they're being discharged, last month, and I'd like to know and troubleshoot if there's any problem. How do I know how it's done? So in our discussion, I guess we'll discuss more and go more into the insight and what we gather into why and how we try to solve that issue and why was it done before and how is the solution bring a different approach and add value to both patients and caregiver. But I think it was more from a nephrologist, I want to know what's going on. From my patients, hey, you've got my back. I know somebody's looking at how I'm doing. And that's what the solution we brought forward if you go into the next slide. So our solution is a standalone product, which is called ShareSource, and it's remote patient management. So it's not telemedicine, but it's a RPM, so remote patient monitoring. So it's a two-way double exchange of data between patients and clinic and caregiver that provide essentially visibility to patient at home treatment to the health professional. It also allowed them to change their prescriptions. If they see some issues, they can change their prescriptions anytime they would like to. It collects daily data that before was really unstructured into a structured manner. And it also allowed to troubleshoot and see problems as they come up. In what you see here is their user interface. So essentially, this is the first version. That version is clearly being upgraded and changed as we move forward in time. I'm sorry for the noise. If people live in Singapore, it's the National Day Air Force training parade that will take place, or air show that will take place. That's what you hear. I'm sorry for that. But I think we can move on to the discussion. But before we do so, I purposely choose this slide because I think at Baxter, we're making a conscious effort to be much more customer-centric. And how do we do this in a digital age? And we're pushing and driving digital transformation at Baxter. And how do you know if you're customer-centric or not? If all of you think, in the last 5 days, when I made decision, how often did I thought about how will that impact the relationship with my customer and their impact of my decision to them as I move forward in my decision, day-to-day operations. So if you ask that question, then you're really close to your customers. If you don't, then there's still more work to do. So Baxter is heavily focusing on transforming ourselves, getting much more closer to the patients and consumer and users, transforming ourselves, looking at the omni-channel experience, not just transactional experience as we've done in the past on Baxter, clinic, hospitals, and then they manage their patients. So we're trying to get a lot closer to our patients and consumer through an omni-channel experience and digital transformation. So we could go ahead and sharing more as we move forward in the next 30 minutes. Thank you.
Great, thanks a lot, Stefan. And really like the point you made at the end about the patient-centric being really a mindset that drives the way how you work, and then that really then translates into the solutions and products that you're developing for patients. Maybe just to tag on to what you shared just now, I'm curious if you can share a bit more how the solution that you presented was actually developed, right? Was it something that was built in another market and then translated for Asia, something that you built here, and how has it evolved, right, as a solution for RPM?
Yes, I guess for this solution, it was developed. First, you need to understand, how was it done before? And we recognize when you look at the patient journey, while PV is well established, physicians and patient were telling us, I'd like to know what's going on. And how was it done before is the patient would use a patient form or a book, and then they would write it down. And then, they would go to the doctors and bring their paper and say, lay this down on the desk, and then the doctor would say, okay, how did you do with your exchange? And then it's very difficult to take an unstructured data on paper for a doctor to kind of say how well they're doing. So then they would look at them, how are you feeling? So that was pretty much how it was done. So we recognized that by being close to our customer, how do we solve for this? And then the patient was more, how do I know I'm doing well, and why do I need to fill this out all the time? So I guess it was a global problem. It was developed globally within the pilot. Australia was part of the pilot in work on this. We launched the platform in 2017, and then we relaunched this. And I guess we were facing two or three major challenges. One is, how do we connect technically our cycler to a modem and do this securely, and then send that data to on a cloud-based platform that it could be processed and analyzed. And then the other challenge was, how do we serve that unstructured data to our physician that would be easily to visualize on a daily basis and have a user interface that is friendly to use and that can meet their needs. And of course, anyone who has developed a platform or a digital health platform is, how well does that platform integrate to their workflow? How they manage their patients, how do they run their clinic? And that was the third part, is how do we fit this in? And it was done through flags. So I think if the doctor can set their parameter in terms of what they would think is normal, and if it's not normal, then they get flagged, and then they get attention to say, I could look at this patient. And that's how the user interface was built. That was one of the key challenges, and I would say it's been extremely successful. So we've seen high integration across the world of this device, and now we're launching and having multiple upgrade and version to extend this to more patients across the world.
So would you say then the challenge was more around, you have a clear patient population in this case, but actually how do we then bring the solution and link it back into the provider, physician end, right, providing this additional service and value, right, to the patient, and parameterizing it, the product, right?
So how do we flag there's a problem? And then of course, how do we help them change the prescriptions, have analytic data that helps them do that more automated? So these are the things and tools that we're adding on afterwards as we were moving forward.
Yeah, there's a great question here. Maybe I'll pose it to you, Stefan, is sort of how do we actually work with patients here, because your target audience probably is a more senior audience who might be less digital savvy. What do you need them to do, right, in this case?
Yes, I guess the question is, how easy it is to use the platform, and how do you make it so your grandmother can use it, or not an engineer or commercial person like me can use it. So essentially is simplify it in when we ship the cycler, the device gets automated, automatically, and then of course it gets done, and it's fairly simple to do, and the patient doesn't have too much to do from a connectivity perspective. And we always try to make that process easy. And it's not always, it doesn't go without challenges at times. Of course, if there's an upgrade, things don't always go well. So how do we make that consumer experience at the patient level as seamless as possible? But so far, the interaction is pretty minimal from a patient perspective. Same thing in the clinic. And we're trying to build this, and there's still a lot more work to do as we move forward. And we constantly try to improve, make this as easy as to plug and play and connect.
Great. So turning to Vivian, I think what you shared at the beginning, right? The Zeiss solution is a very different type of a digital or patient activation engagement product. And in a way, your challenge is actually engaging with all these different patients or parents, or in this case, right, across the ecosystem from online and offline, and capturing them and bringing them into your platform. So I'd love to hear more, if you can share a bit about how you actually engage and specifically activate patients, parents, right, along the different journey steps and bring them to your platform.
Sorry again, I forgot to unmute. Yes, Andrew, you are very familiar with Kironic. I see you wearing glasses. I assume you are also myopic. Yes, for the myopia progression management along the journey, there are many different stakeholders that including families, hospital, schools, community, patients themselves, and also their parents, and I believe also the government. Especially, I think something new is happening and happened was digital players. They are also participating into the myopia progression management ecosystem. So from my understanding, I think the business know-how and the digitalization is very essential. What we set up is standard of care, and we have to consider the upper and the latter steps. So that could be, that could encourage and also maybe force the different stakeholders to participate into the whole process. So in the screening stages and the follow-up stages, I mean, before and after the hospital and professional optical stores, it is very important to the treatment consistency and also help the doctors to better evaluate the intervention efficacy. So I want to share a very interesting practice, what we did on the 6th of July, on the 6th of June, on the National Eye Care Day. And we developed China's first juveniles myopia trend report with Shanghai Association of Science and Technology and Tencent. We interviewed totally 1,500 families' kids living and live with and without myopia, with kids themselves and their parents respectively. And besides the public quantitative analysis survey, we also conducted a 13 KOLs qualitative survey. So based on that practice, we spent roughly half a year. We made a advocacy report to the whole society and a pure, precise educational content and knowledge development, and also to public, and also a precise therapy standard for the medical institutions. So this is a holistic advocacy to public and to professional entities. And the online event was got more than 9 million viewership. And based on that, more than offline activities like community event, pop-up event, and also the Medical Association continuous program, education program were followed up. So I think that is an interesting practice we did in this year, and they to appear different stakeholders to participate in the same level or same picture.
Great. So are these sort of offline and events also how you bring patients into the platform that you have? Because I know you have a digital platform in MPM in Zeiss, where you actually provide some digital services, as you mentioned, right, on the app, right, for parents. So how would you engage and bring, say, patients? Is it through offline partnerships, online partnerships? It would be great to hear a bit more.
We did some practice based on our digital platform, which is Zeiss Myopia app. We did a couple of seminars in different locations based on our Center of Excellence location, and tried to cooperate with hospital like Shanghai Eye and ENT Hospital and some optometry clinic. So once we have an offline location for the trial, and we just put some news on our digital platform, because by today we totally have 45,000 active users on our digital platform. Many of them have high intention to learn myopia practice and knowledges, and also have high intention to trial the advanced technologies. And I believe most of them have myopia keys. So once we have such news on our digital platform, and they triggers their action that, oh, I need to go to an offline site to participate in the offline webinar to use their high technology, or maybe at least I should convince myself my eye doesn't have a situation. So that is some activities. But for a regular practice is from screening Because, you know, in China government from 2019 encourage in every provincial level to control the myopia ratio by 0.5% per year. So it's kind of a government policy to appear the governmental and school to better management the prevalence of myopia ratio for every kids. So that's why for the kids from 3 to 18 years old, they need to do a screening 2 times a year. Is forced by government policy. So once after they get a screening by the school or a professional hospitals or optometry clinics, so based on certain criteria, they have to go to a hospital, professional hospital, to get their first professional or comprehensive examination based on the requirement.
Great. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Vivian. I just want to bring back, I think we have actually here two very different solutions, right, between what Stefan shared with Baxter and Vivian what you shared with Zeiss. And I'm sure a lot of in the audience will be curious about the business model, right? How do these digital enabled patient engagement solutions work? And how do they link up with the business model that MedTech companies have, which are still very often about product sales, about solution sales? So maybe it would be great if both of you can share a bit about that, right? What's the existing business model, right, for the solution, and what's the type of impact that you've seen? Maybe Stefan, if maybe I'll pass it to you first.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do so. So essentially, our business model, this is a standalone product. So the software itself is a product just like our medical devices or anything else that we sell. So that was one key base on driving a solution as a standalone. It was integrated into the existing sales force across most of the regions. And that's the current model. We're trying to monetize the solution and with some success, depending on obviously reimbursement for RPM in several countries. And I guess that's where the challenge comes in. I think during COVID, we've seen definitely progression in that front. But essentially, the business model is a monthly user fees for accessing the platform for patients. You're on mute.
And so the buyer would then be the physician and the clinics or the hospitals that
the clinic is the buyer. So the clinic or the hospital is the buyer. And obviously their ability to pay is highly related to in our market or in our space to ability of successfully see reimbursement for RPM.
Got it. So in your case, then the incentive is actually for the clinics to actually provide this as an additional service that they would have, again, at a competitive advantage against other clinics that are doing similar.
Well, in a public, most of renal care and late stage chronic disease is managed into public healthcare across the region. Therefore, it's more, if I'm going to pay for this, then I expect and perform with this, then the government should reimburse that tool as RPM. And obviously, the other question, from a payer perspective, then you ask yourself, why should I pay for this? And in terms of your launch strategy, which may be something we'll discuss later on, but having an evidence, clinically proven device as you collect data to increase adoption, but also secure reimbursement, then you need to say, well, it's reduced hospitalization, it has a better improved from a clinical standpoint, and that should be part of your scalable activities or plan or strategy as you move and scale this tool. And that's pretty much where Baxter is at today. So how do we get this as a standalone product, and it's not designed to sell more of the other product that we sell, but it's a standalone product. And from a commercial perspective, it's a mindset switch that you need to help your sales force understand this, your marketing team get that understanding. You have to look at, should you have a separate sales force? Should you have a different incentive plan just for that, increase the focus of that tool? Hope that helps.
Yep. No, got it. Thanks. And Vivian, I'm curious to hear from you with a very different solution, right? What business model looks like in this case?
Yeah, exactly. Stephen, maybe offline we can discuss with each other then how to better monetize our business. Generally, for Zeiss myopia business, we don't sell our myopia app, but we monetize offline by our Zeiss existing myopia management devices, software, hardware, and we are also developing new products, roadmap and development plan based on China. For today, China-specific myopia requirement in terms of device products, consumable products, and software plus algorithm, etc. So for the monetization, we standardized the clinical workflow and criteria setting. I think these are our foundation of our business. So we care and support our customer success. Zeiss business model is based on the Center of Excellence setting. So among the business continuum from myopia prevention, diagnosis, intervention, follow-up, we are developing a holistic combination of suitable hardware, software services. So we digitalized the clinical workflow to a doctor's management console. So it's kind of a software. And we enable the doctor to manage the data from multi-visit. So the doctor can conduct a more comprehensive MPM analysis. Then they can, based on that, prescribe a precise intervention to the patients. From my understanding, the connectivity with our the system's connectivity with our internal system is important. However, whether this solution, digital solution in hospital is connectable to China's hospital, to our peers' products, non-Zeiss products, and whether they can embrace the whole ecosystem is also very important and difficult. So that is my understanding for the product development. So I just took one example because some of other product development is under progress. So to be, confidential. You are mute, yeah.
And both of you mentioned your access to data and also insights that you'll be generating, right? And I suppose often we hear about the patient activation solutions that, there might be a data-based business model, right? Can we monetize or sell insights or be able to connect it to some other parts of the business to really create value, right? I'm curious how you think about this statement. Is this something that you've seen work where you've, in addition to developing a connection to say your offline businesses in the Zeiss case, or actually standalone solution, is there a different or an alternative data-driven or insights-driven business model or opportunity, right, as you run up the solution?
Exactly. That is why we set in the online to offline business model. Again, we don't sell any products online, and we also don't monetize the data of our myopia app users. Just we empower our business partner, which is our customer, including hospital, optometry clinic, and optical store. Besides, we sell these products to them, and we also develop new products for them based on the requirement and their pain point. We are also developing some educational courses and continuous educational programs with the government and the medical associations. So when whoever who expect to become the Zeiss Center of Excellence, so we aim to develop 300 COE offline in 3 years. So they can apply to be our Center of Excellence. So we also deliver deliver the training, work with government to the potential COE candidate. So once they pass the COE offline training and meet specific criteria in terms of medical device and people's training and facilitate so they can be our center of excellence. So our digital platform, which is Zeiss Myopia app, can help them to create incremental patient flow. So how we monetize our business is we success our customer.
Great. Stefan, I'm curious if you have thoughts on that as well.
The system is a connectivity system, so it's always online. And we're monetizing it by obviously showing a better clinical outcome and a cost reduction by having lower hospitalizations, longer time on therapy. And eventually we're working towards driving more meaningful claims. And HEOR studies are needed and will be needed to secure better reimbursement for RPM. And I guess in that aspect, APACMed plays a critical role in driving policy and reimbursement for digital health overall. And I think that's why we're trying to drive with APACMed policies in reimbursement through the region, where a single company is more difficult to do. You do it within APACMed in country, and having a clear strategy as an industry group to drive that digital health reimbursement is important. Country like China, for example, where it's just not very difficult to be there. Then you have Japan, ANZ, Korea that do have minimal costs of minimal reimbursement of RPM, but it's a progress in the right direction. So I think this, as an industry group, we need to tackle. And data is critical to prove that any digital health will ask, why should I pay for this? And you need to be usually it's better clinical outcome, and that will lead to additional saving for the payers, which in this case is government.
Right. So the real evidence component and the HEOR arguments that you'll be able to make out of the database that you're generating probably is very important to advancing that.
To scale, yeah. I guess to scale, you're going to have early adopter that will do it because they like it, they see the benefit for them, and then they will do it. But I think to scale, this is one aspect that needs to be resolved: is collecting evidence and good clinical data.
Right. Yeah. I'm curious, to wrap up, right, as we think about sort of the journey that you've been on, right, leading the solution in your business, and maybe any advice or learnings, right, for broader audience here who might be actually running similar types of products, business solutions, or might be helping set up some of these solutions, right, that are patient engaging, patient facing. So what are some of your advice, or what are some of the challenges that you had to overcome and you'd wish someone had told you about earlier?
Well, I guess the first one would be understand your patient journey and your healthcare professional, and identify what is that pain point I'm trying to solve. Where is it happening? How do I do this? And what is really what I'm trying to solve? And if you get this, then your tool will identify an unmet needs that you can add value to your customer. So that's the first one. The other one is obviously, I'm not going to talk about the technical aspect of this, but there's obviously, depending of what you're trying to build, there may be some challenges there. And then the other one is how well is your user interface integrate into how they will use the tools and how they kind of manage their practice. So that's critical. And if that's not done well, then your adoption will be quite low. And it's a little bit like we talked about the iPhone, is if you built enough features or value into it, then they will want to pay more for it. So, how much value do you build in their practice? And by solving the pain point, that's where it comes from. And I guess the other one is, how do you scale? And how does your organization understand the business model will probably be different? And that's really critical, is how do you launch this? How do you scale this? What kind of talent do you need in your commercial operation? And then also within your functional team to launch this. So there's a lot that comes to it, but I think that's, that there's security, where are you going to store this, and all the question that comes, is it locally hosted, in country, outside country, tons of stuff that needs to be considered as you move forward. But the first two one would be, what's the pain point I'm solving, and what is, how much value am I solving for this tool? I hope that helps.
Vivian, what do you think? Would love to get your thoughts as well as we close.
My turn?
Yeah.
I think digitalization and the single disease specialty solution is a mega trend. I don't know whether other countries, but it's definitely happening in the following 5 or 10 years in China. So I think we are building this new business model based on that. So how to, so a single specialty disease, as an example, myopia management is what we are doing now, how we can optimize the workflow for our customer, like increase the patient flow to help them to optimize the patient flow and make more money, and also to add the value to the clinical. For example, based on specific criteria, they will give a single intervention or hybrid intervention, so we can better help our doctors to make their decision. Is another important stuff.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both. Thank you, Stefan. Thank you, Vivian, for your great sharing and this great dialogue. And I hope that for the audience, this is helpful, right? Sharing two very different cases around patient engagement, patient activation in the region. Let me hand it back to Roberta to close. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Adrian, and thanks to you as well, right? So you beautifully moderated this session, and I think so. First of all, I have to say that I learned a lot during this session, and this topic is really close to my heart and to the heart of APACMed. And Stefan mentioned that during one of his, questions. He mentioned also the point of, the policy, how the policy is ready, the countries, the reimbursement, how can we make all these solutions sustainable, not only for the company, so from a business perspective, but for the society as well. So APACMed is trying to work on all of these components, trying to accelerate digital health in our region, to bring more life-saving solutions to patients. So I just, want to take the opportunity to remind that we are engaged in a series of digital health events around remote care this year. So it's our main track. The next event will happen on the 29th of July. It's a closed door, but I think it's interesting for you to know that we are organizing a session with policymakers from different countries across APAC, trying to understand what's their point of view and how they are, moving in this space in order to allow more coverage of these innovative solutions in the region. So that being said, I want to thank all of you, Adrian, Joe, Vivian, Stefan, especially Joe, because I know it's very early for you. Thanks a lot. And again, the recording will be available on our website. If you have any questions post-webinar, you let us know. Thanks very much. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Have a nice weekend.